Hello. Hello. Welcome once again to a wonderful Wednesday webinar with the Climate Emergency Centre Network, an ever-growing network of about 36 centres all around the UK. New one opening up in Walthamstow soon, and groups and projects cooperating to build alliances to work on community-led solutions. Tonight we have a real honour to have Dr. Sailesh Rao talking about Planet B, which is a new operating system for human civilization. Um, Planet B is a proposed PolySolution framework. So really great to hear you talking about solutions. It's one of our favourite subjects here at the Climate Emergency Centre Network. Over to you, Dr. Rao.
Thank you very much. Yes, let me start sharing my presentation. So, by way of my background, I am a systems engineer by profession. So, which means I analyze systems. I try to understand why they behave the way they do, and then I come up with system solutions for how do you solve the problem. So, I wrote a book called There is a Planet B last year. It got published in the Oxford Literary Festival last year. And this year I wrote another book called A Guide to Planet B. So There is a Planet B is about what do we have to do and why we have to do it. And A Guide to Planet B is more of an engineering manual for how do you go about doing this. Okay. So it's a new operating system for human civilization, Planet B. And you ask, why do you even need this? And since you are part of the climate emergency group, I don't have to explain to you how we are facing a polycrisis. I call it a polycrisis. We are listed like 26 different crises and 7 ecological crises, 6 personal crises, 7 institutional crises, and 6 social crises. And about 16 of them are severe enough to cause civilizational collapse or human extinction. Okay, so, and my analysis is showing that this polycrisis is a predictable consequence of the operating system for human civilization today. And that operating system is what I call Planet A. So Planet A is causing this polycrisis because it has the wrong objective functions, the wrong constraint sets. I mean, if you look at it as a system, it's very poorly designed. Yeah, let's put it this way. It wasn't designed. It organically grew the way it is, right? It's badly designed if it was designed. So anyway, these 26 different crises are a predictable consequence of this operating system called Planet A. Now, what do you do about it? It's as if our house is now on fire. Okay, so what's happening is that our house, a planetary home, is on fire. And unfortunately, the people who are sitting in the kitchen and in the bedrooms are hoarding the water that could put out the fire because they say it's in the garage right now, so we don't have to worry about it. We need this water when the fire comes to the bedroom. So that's the kind of mindset we are using. And unfortunately, that's only going to make things worse. Because by the time the fire gets to the bedroom, it'll be a roaring fire and there's nothing you can do to put it out. So the time to put out the fire is now. Now, how do you go about doing it? Okay. So first, let's look at how fast things are changing. The ecological crises, I've listed 7 of them, but as of 2009, we only knew of 3 of them. And climate change was actually the third worst. The worst was loss of biodiversity, and then came the nitrogen and phosphorus cycles, the nutrient cycles for the planet, and the third was climate change. By 2015, it became 4 crises. And by 2023, it was 6 crises. And you can see it's progressing. And by 2025, it is 7 crises. 7 boundaries have been crossed in the life support systems of our planet. It's like saying the Earth has 7 chronic diseases of the 9 life support systems on our planet, 7 have been breached.
Wow, it's
Okay.
very serious, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Now, the NEB in National Emergency Briefing was mainly focused on climate change. Now, within climate change, again, um, CO2 is in the orange zone and ERF is in the red zone. The effective radiative forcing is in the red zone. Okay. And the two worst crises are loss of biosphere integrity and chemical pollution. So, and these are now in the purple zone, they call it, and it sort of goes off into Neverland. And we don't know if we have crossed beyond the point of no return. Okay. The only way we will know whether we have crossed beyond the point of no return is to try and pull them back. So, meaning there is no other way to find out except by actually implementing a solution. So, what is this solution? The solution has to address all 7 of these ecological crises and all the other 19 crises simultaneously. Right? And now, the severity of the biosphere integrity crisis is what I'm showing you here. Here is the amount of food that farmed animals eat and humans eat and what wild land mammals eat on this planet today.
Wow, I've never seen it put in that way before. Wow.
Yes, for every 100 plates of food that land mammals extract from the planet, humans are eating 18 plates. Our farmed animals are eating 81 plates. And all the wild land mammals, from elephants to tigers to deer to buffaloes, you name it, to rats and skunks, all put together have to share one plate. That's how much they're eating. So they're literally dying in front of our eyes.
Mm.
And they're asking us, do you really want us around or not? Oops. And we know that of the other planetary boundary transgressions, the food system is the leading cause. Okay, so this was published in 2017, which said that for nitrogen and phosphorus, for land system change, for freshwater use, for biodiversity loss, the food system is the leading cause. But it was portrayed as not the leading cause of climate change. And this is why everyone focuses on climate change, because this way you don't have to deal with uncomfortable truths about what we are eating. Now, I'm an engineer, I put everything on the table and I say, okay, how do I solve this problem? And there is no sacred cow, when it comes to engineering, when you're trying to solve problems. So I put everything on the table. And so I say that in planet A, the operating system of planet A is set up in such a way that you only look for solutions under the light. So this is the drunkard's search principle. So it's the story of a drunkard who's looking for something under the light. And a policeman asks him, so what are you looking for? And the drunkard says, I'm looking for the keys I dropped on the other side of the street. And the policeman says, so why are you looking for it here then? The drunkard says, because this is where the light is. And unfortunately, this is exactly what we do in planet A. We look for solutions that can make money for somebody or that can grow the economy. If it doesn't make money or doesn't grow the economy, it is not a valid solution. We don't even look at it. Okay. And unfortunately, by doing that, we miss out on the solutions that are out there.
Mm.
So
A classic
Planet B is a
example there.
PolySolution.
There
Sorry?
was a classic example there, the Paris Climate Summit. I came across a
Absolutely.
launch of a thing with about like they were saying we're looking for 1,000 profitable climate solutions. There's many other
Exactly. Yeah.
solutions that are out there, grassroots solutions. Over.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So Planet B is a complete operating system transformation. So I call it a PolySolution to the PolyCrisis. And moving to Planet B is a systems engineering solution for healing planet Earth. It says that we are willing to look at everything and see how we can reorganize human civilization so that it is in alignment with the life support systems of our planet. And why do we have to do that? Because if we don't, we are going to die. It's as simple as that. If we are not in alignment with the life support systems of our planet, we are going to go away, folks. So therefore, we have no choice but to create an operating system that's in alignment with the life support systems of our planet. So that's the idea behind Planet B. And I'll show you the details of it. And here I'm saying it addresses all 26 of the crises that I've identified in Planet A. Okay. So because it addresses it at the root. It looks at the objective function of the system. It looks at the constraint sets of the system, and it figures out why it is not in alignment and puts it in alignment. Okay? So that's all it does. And it begins with looking at how we use the earth today. Now, this is from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the special issue on land that was written in 2019. And it shows how humans are using land today. Okay? So all of our cities and shopping centers and railroads and all the built land is only 1% of the land area of the planet. 19% is unused land, deserts and mountains. 22% is monocultured trees, forests. Wow. It's called forest because the UN definition of a forest is any area with 10% tree cover. And that tree cover could be just timberland or paperland, So basically monocultures. Most of the forests are monocultures, 22% of the land area of the planet. Only 9% is original forest. And even there, we have been encroaching. And we've been encroaching because we use the idea that only 10% tree cover makes it a forest grid. So corporations are going into forests and removing 90% of the trees, converting it into grazing land for animals, and pretending it's still a forest. We can fool each other, but we cannot fool nature. 37% of the land area of the planet is grazing land for farmed animals. And half the cropland outputs are going to feed our farmed animals as well. So cropland is 12% of the land area of the planet. And so totally 43% of the land area of the planet is used to feed our animals. And our animals are providing us with 12% of the food we eat. Okay? It's 12% of the food we eat and 10% of the materials that we use. So 85% of the food we eat is already coming from plants, from grains, fruits, nuts, seeds, vegetables, and so on. And 3% of the food we eat comes from the ocean. This is in terms of dry weight. So remove the water and weigh it, and you measure it, and that's what you get at your plate. Okay. So knowing this, you ask, so how would we solve the problem? First of all, we are assuming that the entire earth is for us to use. It's for human benefit. And the wild animals happen to be there, and they seem to be in the way sometimes, right? That's how we treat the earth. So that whole attitude needs to change. Mm-hmm. And the climate attribution myth is the other issue I want to point out to you. Since we look for solutions under the light, we try to frame everything so that there is a solution under the light. And climate change, we have been doing exactly that. If you look at how officially the IPCC accounts for what is causing climate change, it says 48% of the warming we are experiencing today is coming from fossil fuels, 13% from industry, so totally 61% from these two sectors, 24% from animal agriculture, 5% from other agriculture, 3% from forestry, 2% from 5% from forestry, 3% from waste, and 2% from other sources. So that's the official IPCC accounting. Okay. Now, in 2025, last year, there was a paper published by Jared Wedderburn Bishop in the Environmental Research Letters, and he said, based on the same IPCC data, only 18% of the warming we are experiencing today is coming from fossil fuels, 5% from industry, 52% is coming from animal agriculture, 8% from other agriculture, 10% from forestry, 7% from waste. So that was his conclusion. So I took the spreadsheet that he had in his paper and I tweaked one parameter according to Jim Hansen's latest update. Jim Hansen has updated the CO2 sensitivity from 3 degrees Celsius to 4.5 degrees Celsius. I put that in there, and this is what I get. 2% of the warming we are experiencing today is coming from fossil fuels, 66% from animal agriculture, 10% from other agriculture, 15% from forestry, and 7% from waste. So how is it that the same database is giving us 3 different pie charts? Okay? The same IPCC database. So the official IPCC accounting uses GWP 100, the global warming potential 100. So which averages the impact of the other gases over a 100-year period. And it uses just 4 gases: CO2, methane, halocarbons, and nitrous oxide. Because these are considered to be the most significant gases. So it uses partial accounting with just 4 of the 12 emission species. I'll show you there are 8 others that we need to consider. It undervalues methane emissions by a factor of 3. It undercounts deforestation emissions by a factor of 3. So it uses what is known as net accounting for land use emissions and gross accounting for fossil fuels. So it's like comparing apples and oranges. And it ignores the carbon opportunity cost of the land used for animal agriculture. So what Jared Bishop did was he counted all 12 of these emission species. So it's not just CO2, methane, nitrous oxide, and halocarbons, but you also have non-methane volatile organic compounds plus carbon monoxide plus black carbon, and there are a whole bunch of cooling effects like sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, ammonia, organic carbon, and albedo. And these cooling effects are masking the warming from fossil fuels. So it's not that fossil fuels haven't caused warming. They have caused warming, but they've also caused an equal amount of cooling, or roughly an equal amount of cooling. So the net effect is that fossil fuels are only causing 18% of the warming we're experiencing today. 52% is from animal agriculture, when you look at all of them, and industry. So you see how the breakdown is now. And all I did was increase the sensitivity, Chani sensitivity, from 3 degrees Celsius to 4.5 degrees Celsius in the spreadsheet, and you get this figure. Now, most of the warming from fossil fuels have been offset by the cooling, and animal agriculture sticks out. Now, this is not a good thing. Okay, it means that we haven't yet experienced all the warming from fossil fuels. And the right way to address this problem is to first eliminate animal agriculture as quickly as possible, restore forests on the land that gets freed up, and then dial down the fossil fuel use as that happens. That's the right engineering approach for solving the problem. Don't address fossil fuels first, address animal agriculture first. Or in other words, the way we are addressing fossil fuels is going to take us 30 years anyway to get rid of them. I say continue doing that, but for heaven's sake, go vegan first. So in a vegan world, you have to go from 85% to 100%. So 100% of the food has to come from plant sources. 100% of the materials we use for human use should come from plant sources. And when you do that, you can return 40% of the land back to nature. And we can actively help forests come back. So that becomes the new purpose of humanity. So I say in planet A, the purpose of humanity is to extract and hoard. Extract from the planet and hoard as much as possible. On planet B, the purpose of humanity is to restore the life support systems of our planet and maintain world peace.
Well, there we have a challenge. That's
Yes,
that's what we need to do. Reforest the earth. It's a beautiful,
right.
beautiful thing. Let's get
Right.
at it.
Right, absolutely. So so basically it requires us to change who we are, how we relate to the earth, how we relate to each other, how we relate to the animals. And then, suddenly everything falls into place. Okay, so you can then restore the land, reforest the land. So this is the two loops theory of change. The two loops theory of change, which is from the Berkana Institute, basically says that you cannot change big living systems from within. You can only abandon them and start over. So what's happening with the current system is that planet A, it's now in hospice. It's dying. I mean, it's not able to fulfill its promises anymore. No one believes anything it says. Okay? So we have to now admit it's in hospice and help it die, and then compost the results, compost the resources, and use it to create planet B. Now, planet B is the new emergence. Okay. And it begins with innovators, so people who are trying new things, who are rewilding the planet, who are promoting veganism. These are the innovators of Planet B. And then you connect them, create communities of practice, and then tell people on Planet A there is a new way of living. Come along and join us. Okay, where everyone is welcome. This is not an exclusive club. Everyone is welcome. We are all part of this new transformation. So that's the two loops theory of change. Now, on planet A, there are 7 foundational myths I've identified. A myth is a lie wrapped in a truth. So there is an element of truth in it, but it turns out to be a lie when you extrapolate it. So the first myth is protein is only found in animal foods. Now that is a myth because you see some of the biggest animals on the planet, elephants, rhinoceros, hippopotamus, they all only eat plants. And they seem to be getting the protein from somewhere in plants. Calcium is only found in dairy foods. That's also a myth because there's plenty of calcium in plant foods, and some have more calcium than dairy, some have less calcium than dairy. And Dr. McDougall said if you eat enough calories, you'll get enough calcium. Endless growth as the master objective. So we have to continue growing the economy no matter what, no matter how big it already is in different countries. We still want to grow. Then consumption and commodification is social logic. So everything has to be commodified and consumed. And we think we are separate from nature and we are exceptional to all other species. Human exceptionalism and separation from nature is the fifth myth. Sixth myth is what I just pointed out, misspecified responsibility for ecological breakdown. We keep pretending it's only fossil fuels. Don't have to look at our way of life, which is not true. And finally, that there is a technological solution for all our environmental problems. We keep looking for technological solutions. And we don't realize that sometimes there is no technological solution. I'm a technologist. I love technology, but I assure you that there is no technological solution for all our environmental problems right now. It requires us to rethink how we live. So the foundational axioms on planet B is the interdependence of all life, non-violence and zero animal exploitation. So can we live without exploiting animals? And if so, why don't we? Sufficiency over growth. Let's make sure that we don't have to grow all the time. So you can create a system that doesn't require growth. Honesty and humility as design criteria. So we begin with the assumption that we are just one other species on this planet. And we have a job to do. Because if we have the power to break the life support systems of our planet, we are responsible for them. We are responsible for maintaining them, whether we like it or not. So that's our job. And axiom E is universal provisioning within planetary limits. Make sure that everybody has access to healthy food, shelter. So basic needs are met for everybody. And distributed participatory governance and technology subordinated to life. So life takes precedence over technology. So that's the foundational axioms with which I built Planet B, the Planet B protocols. And here are the goals. So every system has an objective function, a goal. The planet A's objective function operating for the operating system is to maximize resource flow at minimum apparent cost. Okay, so we are constantly optimizing for extracting more and more with less and less cost. Okay, that's what we do. And we try to externalize costs. We say, don't count that, don't count this. So, and let someone else, pick up the tab. Next generation will pick up the tab, or, next country will pick up the tab. Food system is to provide the most exotic food to the richest person at any time. That's the objective function of the food system in Planet A.
Mm.
The education system is designed for industrial economy, teaching compliance and measuring memorization skills. And the healthcare system is designed for the treatment of symptoms to overcome diseases caused by the food and pollution. So that's what Planet A is designed around. And Planet B, the operating system, is to achieve world peace and planetary health. And the food system goal is to ensure every human being has access to complete nutrition. The education system goal is to design for critical thinking and systems literacy with ecological education on planetary limits. So we need to train a whole generation of people who know how to live within planetary limits. Okay. And a healthcare system is a holistic healthcare system prioritizing preventive care and lifestyle intervention. So basically, we have to agree on these goals. Okay, I'm just proposing these are the goals, and I'm designing systems with these goals.
I think you're really on it. This is what a friend of mine who was early pioneer of the internet, early Rainbow Centre days, John Headstrong, used to say, "You don't understand. We have to change the operating system. Our operating system
Right,
is to consume everything on the planet. We have to change the program. The economy's on
right,
this automatic program. You're really on it. This is
right.
what we need to do, change the operating system." Over.
So we decided to try out the food system on Planet B in one place in Washington State. So we call it Together Around Food. The basic idea is that we cooked healthy food, whole food, plant-based meals, and we gave it away to people. Okay, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We published the menu each day, and we said it's all organic. Come and eat, and no one has to pay anything. Just come and eat.
Wow, beautiful.
And people came. So we had Marlene Watson-Tara from Scotland, the world-renowned gourmet plant-based chef. She came over to Washington State to help us do this. And we had a whole team from Loving Hut who were the chefs. So the idea of the Together Around Food, the new food system, is to eliminate hunger and malnutrition, improve human health, build community around food. Right now we are isolated. We are made to eat in our own homes, and we get isolated, and we are lied to about what to eat, and so all kinds of people, marketing to us, saying eat this, eat that, and before you know it, we are confused. So we get diseases. So anyway, it accelerates the plant-based transition. So when people have access to healthy food, they come and try it. So you want to see, is this true? And sure enough, when we started out, we were served 100 meals the first day. By the end of the 15 days, it was packed. We had lines going out the door. And we bought local foods, and then we showed people how this restores planetary health by doing this. Okay? And so you can see by day 5, I think this picture is from day 5. It was packed. Okay? And we were publishing the menu every day. So people knew what they were going to get. And it was gourmet food. It looks good. It smells good. It tastes good. And if you give people healthy food that tastes good and looks good, they eat it. So anyway, this is our journey. I call this part of our hero's marathon journey for humanity. We were one family back in Africa 50,000 years ago. And then we migrated out of Africa and went to every part of the world. Okay? And then over the last 10,000 years, we have been heating the planet, heating. And now we have to start cooling the planet. No more heating. We have to start cooling. And that's the planet A versus planet B dichotomy. Okay? And we have to choose now which way we want to go. And I say we are almost at the end point. We are only 14 feet to the finish line. And we have to complete the job that our ancestors started 50,000 years ago. And the only way to complete that job is to adopt something like Planet B and restore the life support systems of a planet and maintain it going forward. So with that, both my books are available here on this website. You can download the PDF for free. And I've written papers about Planet B, and they're getting published now. So this is the first paper that got published about the systems engineering framework of world peace and planetary health. And then another paper just got published saying Planet B is a PolySolution for the planetary PolyCrisis emergency. So with that, I'll stop and take your questions.
Thank you so much. That was really incredible, very informative, and I'm really glad, that you were talking about systems thinking because, we do so many smaller things. We've got to do whatever we can at whatever level and whatever scale. But until we actually look at the system that we are within every single day and what the program is for that system, we're going to continue repeating certain cycles until we change the system. So thank you very much for that. I would definitely recommend people to check the book out, read it, share it with other people. So if folks I've got a couple of comments and we're going for questions, but if folks have got a question or a comment or feedback, if you want to use a little heart-shaped react button down the bottom of the screen, you can raise a hand like that, and then we can see who's one, two, three for a question or short a comment or feedback kind of thing. Um, just to say a couple of bits there, really, really important, creating theories of changes, looking at the whole system we're within. I mean, your thing there about reforesting 40% of the planet.
Mm.
We really need to get tree planting armies together of people to start reforesting the earth very, very, very quickly. And, not just one, I think you referred to it there as forests that were just paper, one kind of logging
Right.
thing. They actually need to be, very diverse, tree forests being planted. There's young people we know, we're talking with Cara and others about doing tree planting parties. Thousands of people could come out and be planting trees. We need cooperation between landowners, local government, and people who want to plant the trees. Definitely composting the system was something that came up from a big Swiss conference. We sent our friend Danny to conference of a lot of European networks, and also building a mycelium network of groups that can help and support. So, all right, folks, if you've got a question or comment or feedback, pop your hand up. I think Gavin's there first with his hand up. Over to you, Gavin. Over.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rao. That was a talk I was looking forward to after seeing your website.
Mm.
And I think that what differentiates it from many of the talks that we have had is it's very much a blueprint for a poly solution. Um, I particularly like ideas of communal eating
Mhm.
because that also implies communication between people. It implies communal talking. And I think that one of the things that we really need to do is to talk with each other a lot more than we
Right.
do at the moment. We are very much focused on doing stuff. And I think that we're less focused on thinking and talking about the way that we feel, the way that we relate to each other, and the way that we can take agency within
Mm.
the system. And uh, you know, I think we really need to actually focus on that, focus on, if you like, the softer skills and the
Mhm.
softer solutions, which is about uh, not just the systems that you've mentioned, the operating systems that you've mentioned, but also about personal and interpersonal uh, relations. So
Mm.
thank you very much for that talk. I will certainly recommend the book as a uh, as a conversation starter and conversation continua. Thank you.
Mhm. Lovely, thank
Thank you
you,
very
Gavin.
much.
I might just one of the things you talked about there was about having endless growth, that we can't have a system that keeps having endless growth. I don't know if
That's
George Curtis wanted to say something. We had a conversation this week. You know, we have gross domestic product, where our economies are measured in how many boxes and things we produce. But George, what were you telling us about that one? Something in New Zealand has got a living something framework?
Yeah, the Maoris in New Zealand have said they're part of the environment, and therefore their treasury operates on a living framework, living standards framework, I think it's called, rather
Mhm.
than on GDP, which, as far as we're concerned, I think the mindset is that the Treasury have to pay for the NHS, and the only way they can think of to generate enough tax is to stoke up GDP by any matter it is. And
Mm.
GDP was invented in the 1930s, was successful in getting wealth going again in the Great Depression, but it pays no attention to how much you trample on the environment, doesn't invest in infrastructure, and doesn't mind who owns the wealth. So I think that is it's used very much by the Treasury as their success criteria. They're interviewed by the BBC on GDP about once a week. So that is an unhelpful, and I liken it to being a compass. That it's about 30 degrees off north, and if the
Right.
country is heading GDP, it's heading in the wrong direction.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. We need to look at these systems that we live within: economic, environmental,
Right.
social, personal. I think Samita Jonak's got something there. Over to you, Samita.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sailesh. Excellent presentation. I love listening to your talks, always
Mhm.
inspiring. So I'm going to ask you a tough question, just because I want to be armed with the best way to respond to this. I'm going to assume you're going to be against this, so I'll frame it that way. There is this new trend I've noticed, uh, having attended the Reducitarian Summit,
Mhm.
where there's hybrid meat. So it's half plant,
Mhm.
half animal. And
Mhm.
I've seen some effective altruism movement funding going towards these products. And
Right.
their contention is there's a market for it, and the market being moms who are trying to get their kids to eat more veggies. So it's like slip it into the chicken nuggets. So I really want to be able to quash this, because I feel like what my gut instinct is like, all you're doing is much like the cage free campaigns. You are just continuing the animal agriculture industrial complex, and you're just propping up the system, and it's perpetuating it. You're giving
Right.
like complicity and latent approval for it. So how do we destroy that? How do we stop money going towards that as a feel good measure?
Yeah. It's going to go there, whether we like it or not. Okay, because people are looking for ways to solve problems under the light. That's the light. Okay, anything that makes money, right? And what I'm saying is that the reducitarian approach, there is no system behind it. I cannot think of a system where we say, well, let's retain the myths and let's just tweak it a bit. Once you see these are myths, you have to really design something that has no more myths. You cannot design systems that are based on falsehoods, especially when you start something new. You know, so I'm saying the reducitarian approach will happen automatically by the fact that some people will still have a leg in planet A and another foot in planet B. That's how you'll see this reducitarian approach happening. That's how I see it. I say that the new design has to be based on sound principles. And if people are still going to use animals, that should be part of planet A, not part of planet B. So I don't want to bring in reducitarianism into planet B. You know what I mean? So it has to, because I cannot think of a system like that. And effective altruism, again, I point out to people that a dead planet has no suffering. And we don't want to minimize suffering blindly. Okay. So, so you may be going down the wrong path if you do that.
Mm. Does that help, Samita?
I need to do some market research because, what you're saying is a systems approach, and I don't know if they're thinking about it from an engineering lens. I think they're going to think about it more from a business lens. And so to be able to say,
Correct.
you know what, this isn't going to appeal to people that are plant-based or vegan, and it's certainly not going to appeal to meat eaters. So you're pissing off both audiences. You
Right.
know? So who are you
Right.
left with as your market, really?
Right. Right. Yeah, I'll post the book link. I'll post the
Okay,
link to
thank you.
the
I think
chat.
Alison's got a question there, and I wanted to ask you something about distributed participatory democracy. But over to Alison. Thank you, Alison.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah. It's that was a very interesting talk. Thank you very much. I didn't realize how much animal agriculture was a problem. And I
Right.
knew it was a problem, but not how big. So my question is really related to timescales. Do you have
Mhm.
any suggestion on how quickly we have to make this transition, and whether you think that can be done by sort of personal choice, persuading people and people deciding to go vegan, or whether there needs to be some governmental input
Right.
on this?
Yeah, in answer to your first question, it is ASAP because it's an emergency. Okay, it's really an emergency, and we need to frame it as an emergency because governments have to be involved in this because it is an emergency, and we don't know if today we return 40% of the land back to nature. We don't know if the ecosystem will be stable because there are so many species that we have already lost. Okay, so the idea is to restore the ecosystems that used to be there 200 years ago or 300 years ago, because that was a stable system. And if we go along the current path and let wildlife die out, it will take millions of years, if at all, for the planet to recover, and we won't be part of it. Okay, so knowing that, what is the point of knowing all this if you're not going to use that knowledge? So I'm
Mm.
saying we need to act as if it's an emergency, which means all of us have to be involved. The community has to be involved. I'm saying to people, if you have ever had a potluck, a vegan potluck, please turn that into a together around food event.
Mm.
Rather than each of us cooking on our own and coming and, sharing with the community, just come together and cook together as a community and throw the door open to everybody to come and experience the food. If you have access to a community center, that's what I would do. And so that's what we did in Washington State. And basically, what happened is that the people of Washington State, in the county that we did it in, they are trying to continue what we did. Most of the people who came were not even vegan, okay, when they first came. But they understood why we were doing it, and they liked the food. They got better. They felt healthier. They lost their arthritic pains. They lost their cholesterol levels dropped. I mean, all kinds of things happened there in 15 days. And now they are trying to continue that going forward. Now, the county government is helping them out by giving them the space to use, the community center to use. Without the cooperation of the county government in giving us that space, we couldn't have done it.
Mm. I think that's
So it's
one
all
thing.
of us,
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, this is a cooperation game. It is, an emergency planet-wide. We need everyone,
Right.
governments, local councils, universities, schools, citizens initiatives
Right.
like ourselves. That's why we've cracked on and helped over the last 7 years support 36 community groups get empty shops on the high street to set up community centres and having community cafes and food and, displays about the environment. I'm thinking that I'd like to see what I don't know whether Cara would like to say anything. I mean, I'd like to say something about how do we support farmers? Farmers provide a lot of our food. There is obviously the great discussion and awareness about, animal agriculture and plant food and the rest. How do we transition? How do we help the farmers? How do we help landowners? How do we help people without land? How do we build this transition together? It's very hard for farmers at the moment. Sorry, just over to Cara a sec, but I saw Channel 4 actually mention, I had a farmer on this week, and he was saying, I'm looking at the crops because of the heat, the drought, and he said we are actually going to be possibly experiencing food shortages soon in Britain because of this.
Right.
Now, I heard activists talking about that 3-4 years ago, and it was all a bit out on the edge. Now it's Channel 4 on the news with the farmers. Cara, what do you think? How can we help the farmers more? Being a
Hey,
well-connected farming community.
yeah. Well, I'm a rewilding farmer, but I'm very closely connected with my neighbouring farmers who are they have cattle for milk and for meat. And I'll just give you a brief on what the situation is here in Derbyshire because of this continuing heat wave and the climate crisis. So my neighbours are in real trouble. Most of the farmers around here are absolutely in trouble. We have a crisis here, probably a crisis nationally, but right in front of me, and I'm at the coalface. Our fields are brown, they're burnt off, they're a fire risk. Our normal sources of water have dried up or are nearly dried up. They're not sufficient to water my neighbours' cattle. And it is an emergency, it is a crisis. So my neighbours who normally have plenty of grass and who normally have plenty of fodder have come to me as a rewilding farmer because I've got lots of land that doesn't do anything very much. And they've said, can you help? Because we'd like to bring our cows onto your land. And I've said yes to them because I'll help them. And they're good farmers. If you were going to keep some farmers, and I'm not saying you should, but if you were going to keep some for milk, you would keep these particular very old-fashioned farmers who just keep a few cows and they look after them and they know them all by name and all that stuff. So if you were going to keep anybody, you'd keep my neighbours. So I've helped them out. But this is an emergency, and I've put in the chat that we can't continue to keep animals the way we do. I mean, it's just ridiculous, the consumption and the cruelty involved, and how many millions of chickens and pigs have been killed in this heat. And these are the facts that really need to be told. So on the one hand, the public needs to face up to what the consequences are of what they're actually consuming. So to get round to what we can do about that, I think the way we can support farmers. Are you there? Yeah, can you still hear me? Yep. I went to see my MP last week, and can you all hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
I went to see my MP last week to explain to her that we have a proper crisis here because it's not just animal agriculture. We are not producing food either. We're not producing grain or the vegetables. They're all drying up and we can't do anything. So we have food insecurity, and it's not sometime in the future, and the crisis is not sometime in the future. It's actually now. And we're short of water. The reservoirs are half full. The streams that supply them, the rivers that supply them, are barely there. So within a very short time, we're going to be short of water. And what are we going to do about it? So I said to my MP, okay, we've got this crisis. This is a good moment to offer farmers who keep animals an alternative. And we could say to them, look, the average age of the farmer is 60, come down from 68. You're struggling. It's going to get worse. If we gave you a golden goodbye and say a universal basic income, and you could just sit on your farm, you don't have to move, but you'd have to engage in landscape recovery schemes, which are being put out by the government with the objective of covering 30% of this country with wild trees and heathland and grass, whatever will grow, just covering it with something green to mitigate the climate. So I suggested that to her. And she looked very sceptical, and she said, oh, well, I haven't heard about that. And I said, well, if I tell you, and she said, what do you want from me? So I said, I want you to really push DEFRA, because we've got a collaboration of farmers in this locality, and we've put together a scheme in conjunction with the Wildlife Trust, who have applied for us. But DEFRA said the application window was in February this year, and then they pushed it back to April, and then they pushed it back to August, and now they've pushed it back to September. And we've just heard that it's now pushed back to February. So here are, I think, about 30-something farmers with a total of about 1,500 hectares that all want to do this. And yet, because DEFRA keep pushing back the line, the deadline, we are now held in limbo for another year and wondering what to do. So I don't know what will happen with that. But there is an option actually to extend this scheme and say to all the farmers that are struggling with their water supplies and everything else that this is what we should be doing. And this is what government actually could just say, let's do this, In terms of what you're talking about with diet, I had an hour-and-a-half conversation with Dr. Chris MacDonald at Cambridge, and he's done some very interesting research. I'm sure Dr. Rao will have heard of him. And he said if you want to sort of convert people to a plant-based diet, then what you need to do is put a positive spin on it. Instead of saying you can't eat any more meat anymore, just say, actually, this is a really positive thing. Actually, you get more protein in, tofu and a plant-based diet than you would from meat. And he's done all sorts of things with supermarket aisles and lots of research with that, and what he calls push prompts to encourage people to pursue plant-based diets. So there are lots of people, I think, who really want to do this, and I absolutely applaud Dr. Rao's communal kitchens. I think that's a great idea. So anyway, I've said enough. Over to all of you to comment on it.
Cara, you're a wealth of information. That's really brilliant. And maybe recommend that professor you just mentioned. We should get them up for a webinar.
I'm sure he'd be great, yes.
And really important work you're doing as part of the National Emergency Briefing Office to reach out to, DEFRA and linking to the National Farmers Union. We really need to be having, I think someone at the Climate Emergency and Convergence said, difficult conversations need to be had between all of us, between farmers, between government, with what's going on at the moment. It's absolutely critical. I think Diane's got in with one there, and I just wanted to ask about participatory democracy for a final question to Dr. Sailesh. So prepare for that one. Diane, do you want a quick one? We're coming close to time. Over.
I'll be very brief, and it's a really scary thing for me to say. I'm in two minds whether to even say it. You'll all hate me forever, but I still eat meat. However, I think what we're going for is cheap meat, and therefore meat, millions of chickens, millions of cows, it processed, the big system of it all. Whereas, as I think it was Cara who said, when you've got a very small number of cows, you have a very small amount of meat. Once in 6 months or 3 months, it's a special treat. You have a small amount. It's been looked after with love and care, and that animal is part of the process as a whole. You don't have to just get rid of them all and turn totally vegan. Somebody in the chat actually put, better not to call it vegan, call it plant-based. I live plant-based. I mostly eat plants. I love plants. I can do really good cooking with plants, but every now and then I'll send off for a happy pig or a happy cow or a happy... I don't usually do cows, to be honest, but just a happy little touch of something meaty for fun once in a while.
Thank you for that, Diane. I think we need to recognise everyone is at different stages of their journey, and we all have to bring about our own personal change, but raise awareness. So, Dr. Sailesh, do you want to say a bit on that? And then I want to ask you about participatory.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, big chicken or big pork or big cow is just small chicken, small cow, small pork that has its input minimized and its output maximized. It's a predictable consequence of capitalism, going from small to big. So this is why I don't make a distinction between them. Ultimately, I'm saying we have to make healthy food freely available to every human being on the planet. That's my basic goal. And if people want to eat unhealthy food or occasionally eat something else, it's their responsibility. I don't have a problem with that. But the role of the system is to make it easy for you to do the right thing.
Thank you.
So that's what it should be. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Sailesh. Just to say, there's George Curtis has put up this the living framework. I would encourage everyone, our living standards framework from New Zealand. I'd encourage everyone to look at that in terms of system change. We're stuck on this gross domestic product, and I'm really glad what you brought up about, changing the operating system. Have you got a few more minutes to go to 5 past or so, Dr. Sailesh?
Sure, sure,
Sure.
sure, no problem.
I don't mind a little bit longer, but people sort of drift a bit after 8. So, what's to say? Participatory democracy. I'm someone's involved with, many different movements over the years. I've run the centres that a lot of them have come through, but the Occupy movement had at its peak 2000 community assemblies, horizontal participatory democracies going on in cities all across the world. We now have more advanced technologies. We have several groups all working on the kind of citizen assemblies, people's assemblies. You mentioned in your talk about distributed participatory kind of democracy. We're working
Correct.
with a
Yeah.
group called the cooperating system now. It's a system that
Hmm.
can sign up and actually have assemblies and then share the data and also look on donut economics with, like, you get local data about air quality, water quality,
Right.
biodiversity, well-being, and then you can vote up different things of what you want to form a working group and take an action on. So I've put that in the chat for people to look at. But I just wondered, have you any more slightly deeper thoughts on what you're talking about there with distributed participatory democracy? Over.
It's making people feel secure, and that they're making people feel that their voices are heard. Right now we have a system that makes us feel like our voices are not heard at all. We elect someone who goes off and who is
Mhm.
pays us lip service and does whatever they want to do. Yeah, and we really don't have a say. So I think democracy has become a big sham at the moment, right? And so, and a lot of, see, when I talk about distributed participatory governance, I'm talking about the subsidiarity principle mainly, which is that all
Sorry, the
decisions have
what
to be
principle? A bit slower. The what?
the subsidiarity principle, which basically says that the decisions have to be made as locally as possible,
Ah,
because the further you remove uh, the place where the decisions are being made from the place where it's affected, then the more disconnected the decision is going to be. So the local people know better as to how to manage that local environment
ah,
than someone in some distant land.
got it. So the subsidiarity principle ensures decisions are made at the closest possible level to citizens,
Correct.
within the
Correct.
EU.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, bottom up
And it
more.
has to be all open source. I'm calling for a completely open source system
Mhm.
so that there is no more patents and no more, my idea, your idea, and basically people fighting over whose idea it is, how to make profit out of each idea, all this unnecessary stuff. Because we have to start collaborating. It's no longer about competition. Right? We have a planet to save first, and the planet is basically saying, look, it's like if we have 7 chronic diseases and we go to a doctor and we say, tell us exactly when we are going to die. The doctor may not be able to tell you that. All he'll say is, I'm surprised you're still alive, right? Because you have 7 chronic diseases. And that's the way I feel about our planet right now. Because these systems can break down quickly. Okay? I study systems a lot, so I understand how systems can break down, and you don't know when they can break down. And if a system breaks down, it's impossible to put it back together the way it was, because a lot of the subsystems fail.
Yeah.
To me, death is basically catastrophic system failure. In one particular system, maybe your circulatory system failed, and then it brings down your immune system, your digestive system. It brings down all your other systems in your body because there is no more oxygen flow to different cells, right? Um, Similar thing is happening in ecosystems right now. We see dead zones in oceans, dead zones in rivers, where the oxygen has been depleted. So what is not to say that the same thing cannot happen at a global scale? It can happen at a global scale. So let's not mess with it.
Mm. Brilliant. I think so. I've just put something there in the last of the chat about the cooperating system. and
Hmm.
what can it provides an actual system where people can get the exact data of what's going on by their postcode for the air, the water, the well-being indicators,
Right.
biodiversity, and only when we realize how bad it is in our particular areas can we then start to create working groups to clean up the river or clear up
Okay.
the air pollution or work on the biodiversity. We need a cooperating system very, very fast. And for years we've painted this banner system change, not climate change. What does that system change look like? It needs to be a system of cooperation. And you've very well illustrated today, the operating system of our planet is keep consuming things, the air and the water supply, till there's nothing left. Look at the word, to consume everything, to consume the planet. We need to change that system, like George Kurtz was saying, to a more living framework away from GDP. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for this talk tonight. It's really illustrated a lot of things. It's really good that we look at system change and system, change thinkers. You're a very deep thinker there. Over to you for the last comments, last words. Anything you want to share with us? Anything we can do to help you or promote the book, or how can
Oh,
we
thank
take
you
this
so much.
further? Over.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm deeply grateful to you for giving me this forum. And yeah, I'm going to the UN next week, so hopefully they will listen. And we have a documentary that we made about what we did in Washington State. So hopefully we'll
Ah,
get some traction there with the nations of the world.
okay. If you can share that documentary, we could share that. If everyone, we try to have a call to action. George, I think we'll give the last word to former Colonel George Curtis there.
Well, I heard, yes, going to the UN, please make the UN work. They've got a lot of the right ideas and nobody listens to them. So let's somehow get the UN to be more powerful. And a lot of their problem is at the other side of the Atlantic, where it's located but not listened to. But what we need worldwide is to pay attention to the common sense that comes out of the UN climate people.
Mm.
Right.
Thank you very, thank you very much, George. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll stop the recording there. And one call to action we're trying to build into these webinars. So if there's one thing that you can do tonight, what is the call to action from tonight? What is the one thing that anybody could do? You could get this Planet B book and you could send it to 5 other people via WhatsApp or via Facebook or something. If you like what was going on, please share this book. Please share the webinar.
Yeah,
Like, subscribe,
yeah,
comment, and let's
please,
get behind systems thinkers for change. Sailesh?
yeah. Yeah, I would say please download the books. All my books are available for free from that website, and you're welcome to share them with everyone. And please instead of a next potluck, create a next together around food event.
Do that anyway.
Beautiful. Keep networking solutions where we are, folk. Next week, we have Anuradha coming to tell us about the mycelium map, which can link up untold various different groups in every area and surface the mycelium of great projects going on. Look forward to seeing you next week. Keep networking solutions wherever you are.
Thank you.